bonjour, and welcome to the Amateur Detective Club. This club is exactly how it sounds. A bunch of amateurs talking about their favorite mysteries. So if you encounter a real mystery or a murder, contact the proper authorities. Do not come to us. We do not know what we are doing. But enjoy the program. Allons-y. Let us begin. I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to order. My name is Tristan Miller, the Saucy Sleuth.
I'm Melissa Meli, the Spy.
Today's show brought to you... Okay, so we have a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/ADCpod, and we got bonus content, other stuff. We release the episodes early when we can. We're working on it. But there's a lot of bonus episodes. We went a whole hog in the early days of the pandemic. There's like half a season of Murder, She Wrote up on there. So enjoy that. We're also on the Scavengers Network. You can go to scavengersnetwork.com and check out all the great podcasts and other content they have there. The brought to you by was the Audible link. I can't be arsed, as they say. I can't be arsed to see if it still works.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's
I just have had a very busy couple of weeks.
It's a not now problem. It's a later problem. Yes. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
And the baby has a cold. So
yes. Tristan has a cold. So we are recording from a few blocks away from each other from our apartments.
Yes. Because I don't want to get Melissa sick.
No, and I am my defenses have been brought down because I just ran a marathon.
I'm sorry, what did you do?
I ran a marathon?
Oh, this is the first time hearing about it, Melissa. I've never...
I never talk about the fact that I run or that I was running a marathon, and now that I've run the marathon, the fact that I ran a marathon. Never talk about it.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Yeah. I've never heard of this. This is such a shock to me. Mm-hmm. Where was this marathon?
It was in Philadelphia.
PA?
PA. It was a nice little weekend trip, a little jaunt out there.
Jaunt.
Yeah. And spent Sunday morning running for a very, very long time. So I'm wearing my medal, so if I move around, you might hear it because it's a bell. It has the Liberty Bell on it. So I was thinking about this in the past couple days. The reason that people talk about their marathon running so much is because it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very difficult thing you've done.
Yeah, it's really hard.
That's the thing of, like, people complain about runners talking about running a lot. I'm like, have you tried? It's hard. It's a pain in the ass. Of course they're going to talk about it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of metaphors for other things in life. I really, when people aren't interested, or I don't know whether or not they'll be interested, or Tristan is very kind and willingly chats with me about running a lot, but I do try to tone it down. But, when you're training for a marathon, it consumes a lot of your waking thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Like any other big life event. Like, I wouldn't shut up about my tour that I took earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like, it's an impressive thing you've done. You should be proud of yourself, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I am proud of myself. And I'm really glad that I'm not running another marathon until next year.
Good.
It's going to be like 50 weeks until I run another one of these things. And so I'll get a nice break where I'm only running less than 26.2 miles. Oh, dear. That's so many miles.
Is too many, one might say.
It is. And I have started saying that. It's too many miles. Am I still going to do it?
Yeah. Too many miles.
So if you want to, not you specifically, Tristan, but definitely not Tristan. One might do a beer run. or a beer mile. And this is a very...
mile.
This is, well, maybe it's not just a mile. I forget. But it's definitely, like, you chug multiple beers within the course of running as fast as you can for...
Oh, I think you were talking about a 4th of July weekend, is what I believe you're talking about, Melissa. I believe you're talking about a cookout.
It sounds terrible. I don't know why people willingly do this.
I do, because it sounds so stupid. It sounds like something exactly the kind of thing that an uncle would be like, hey, so guys, come here. I got a great idea, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
And if I was still drinking, see, that I would get behind. That sounds like so fun and stupid. Like, if I was, like, running 2 miles and had to yarts, like, on the side of the road, that's hilarious.
All right, I guess.
So dumb. It's typical dumb boy behavior, I feel like.
Yeah, I
Not
think it's...
to be too gendered about it, but...
Well. No, there's if I remember correctly, you run 1 lap, if you do it on a track, or at least the podcast episode I listened to of the Runner's World podcast, I think what they did was they ran a lap around the track, chugged a beer, run another lap around the track, chugged a beer, and so, like, every quarter mile they drank an entire beer, which is a choice that people have made. And
as someone who is mostly genetically Irish and German, like, that does feel correct to me.
Sure.
Like, that does. I was like, yeah, no, that sounds of God. So, does it open? It opens with the fans, right?
Yeah. So there is
with Jabuki.
With what?
Jabuki. That's the the actor's name. He's a very funny stand-up comedian as well. Highly recommend following him on Twitter. He is so good.
Oh, the one doing the voiceover.
Funny. The one doing the voiceover, yeah. The sort of touchstone for the fan group.
That's great.
The main one, I would say.
That's so fun. Yeah. I love that.
But yeah, so he's part of a fan group that is camping outside the Arconia. They're dedicated. They have a forum, and they're dedicated fans. There's 4 of them: an older man, a woman in a wheelchair, and a young Asian boy.
Yes.
And so it's a very diverse, eclectic group of weirdos that has decided to camp outside an apartment building with signs that say, like, I don't know what they say, but they're like, "Go Mabel," or "I love you, Mabel," or "I love you, Oliver," or who killed Tim Kono. That's the main one.
Sure, yes. And if you hear...
So they're a bunch of weird fanatics.
The voiceover, he is talking about how they are such big fans of the podcast, and they have been waiting with breath that is bated for the next episode, and it is late coming out. So they're camping out to try to see our 3 heroes, and they're wondering where the episode is. Come on, give the people what they want. So after the cold open and the credits, we go to the title sequence. It says it's fan fiction, and we have Mabel and Oliver in the back of the van that Theo is driving, sorry. And Oliver is pleading with Teddy at the to take mercy on them, and Theo. I keep saying Teddy when I mean Theo. It's because
but not before. Mabel goes, "Ugh, what's that smell?" Oliver goes, "I think it's formaldehyde, which is what they preserves bodies in." I played a body in my version of Weekend at Maury's, which was Tuesdays at Maury's and Weekends at Bernie's combined. Which, can I tell you, Melissa? I have pitched that exact same show.
Really?
Yes. As like a fringe festival show. Yeah, and like even started working on it. But I had, you know what tripped me up? I've never seen Weekend at Bernie's. I've read Tuesdays with Maury, but not. So I was like, oh, I have to watch a movie to write a parody. Ugh. But I've had the exact same. So I'm so happy that happened.
That's very funny. So yes, we get to wherever we're getting to. Behind a whole bunch of like a very industrial looking place.
A loading dock of some kind.
A loading dock, that's what it is. So
Yes.
Teddy's like, oh, Theo, these are our friends. Come on, you ask interesting questions, blah, 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 blah. And so Teddy's very like, oh, I'll give you a lift home. And Theo's like rushing them to the car.
Does punch Oliver in the gut.
He does, yeah.
For talking too much.
Right. So Theo's driving, and they're all in the back, and there's Teddy is in a seat that faces Oliver and Mabel, and he's saying, "I like this seat because Theo can't read my lips in the rearview mirror because he doesn't want his son to hear that his father is saying certain things." So basically, he is saying, even though I was for a long time ashamed of my deaf son, and it like ended my marriage along with all the whores.
Yeah, I was going to say along with all the whores. The way he delivers that is so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then he talks about how, he does care about his son, and he's realized the beauty of silence. It makes for beautiful friendships and partnerships. So he's essentially calmly intimidating them into saying that you've got to stop the podcast. You release one episode saying that Tim Kono killed himself after all, and end the podcast, and then hide everything that you have learned about me and my son, and then I won't come for you.
And he says you can release it tomorrow morning, or you can release it posthumously. So it's very clear. Like there's no gray area of what he's insinuating.
Right. And Mabel says, what about Tim Kono? And Teddy says, you don't know anything about Tim Kono. So there is that.
Mm-hmm. And then they go to the Arconia. They're dropped off in front of the Arconia. Mabel and Oliver are trying to run in, and they are accosted by the fans. And there's a really fun exchange because Mabel goes, "Oh my God, we have fans," and Oliver goes, "Oh my God, we have fans."
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah, Mabel's
and I figured out. Yeah, she is. She's like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
And I figured out what her voice sounds like finally.
Okay.
10 episodes or whatever in. 9 episodes or whatever.
8.
And it's Owen Wilson.
Okay.
Because, like, in the opening, she goes, "It's Tim Kono's phone." And I'm like, "Oh, hey, guys." It's the same. It's like if you took Carrie Fisher's voice and you took Owen Wilson's voice and you squished them together, you get Selena Gomez. But it's more forward than Owen, but it still has that, like, sort of almost a hi-ho Kermit the Frog here thing.
Okay. It's quite a hybrid.
Yeah, it's just like a forward nasal voice. But she doesn't open her mouth when she talks.
Right.
I love her voice. I cannot stress that enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But when she goes, "Tim Kono's phone," I'm like, "Oh, okay, there it is."
So, one of the fans, they have like merch. They have homemade merch with he has Oliver's face on it. And Oliver's like, just out of curiosity, what would you want an official version of the merch?
Yeah.
So that thought has been put into Oliver's head.
Which is amazing. And speaking of, you can go down in the show notes and take a look at our merch if you want. We got some great mugs and t-shirts. But also, at one point, someone says Oliver's my favorite. One of the fans. And that thought never crossed my mind that he would be somebody's favorite because he's so annoying.
I mean, that works for some people.
I know, and like I love Martin Short, so why wouldn't I love Oliver? You know, I enjoy his character on the show. I enjoy watching Oliver, but like diegetically, I feel like I'd be like, you know, when there's a trio of podcasters, there's always that one where you're like,
Yeah.
Do not email us at
No.
amateurdetectiveclub@gmail.com letting
Not about that.
mean do not
Don't
do
tell
this
us.
thing saying I'm your favorite.
So they run upstairs and they're knocking on Charlie's
Thank
door. And lo and behold, Jan answers the door and says Charles is getting bagels. Neither of them seems very pleased about this. Bagels sound great though. Like good bagels. Like apparently I'm hungry because I want a bagel now. And it is 8:30 p.m. as we are recording this.
I had a cinnamon raisin bagel with peanut butter yesterday.
Oh, that's a good idea. I would never have thought to put peanut butter and cinnamon raisin, but that does sound good.
It is. It's really good. Jam is really good on a cinnamon raisin. So is, weirdly, cream cheese with chives. It's got that sweet and savory at the same time. It's good.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Mm-hmm. You ever put, like, with a regular bagel, with a plain bagel, you put the cream cheese on and then the jam on the other one?
No.
These hills sing. It's so good.
No, that does sound
Cannot
good,
recommend
actually.
it enough.
Yeah, okay.
It's like toast.
Well, we have a problem now because I have to go find a bagel at night. Because now I'm...
I was going to say come over, but we're doing this remotely because I'm sick.
Yeah, it's
Schmuck.
true.
I'm a schmuck.
So they sit down at the table as Jan serves them coffee and the table of the Scrabble game.
Yes.
From the night before. And I think Mabel says something like, all right, Brazos. And Jan says, that was our safe word.
Yeah. And
And
the face Mabel makes is just like, okay, what's the safe word to get out of this conversation, I believe is the line she says. But
that's
her
what
face
she says.
is so funny.
Charles comes back with the bagels, and he only got enough for the two of them, which...
And
all right.
Steve delivers a great performance. He goes, I'm just kidding, except for these blueberry bad boys are going straight into the freezer. And during this time, Oliver has gone, we were threatened. And because he's like, where were you guys? We figured out so much. And he goes, our lives were threatened. And he goes, he throws them in the freezer and turns and goes, now, wait a minute, what now? It's such a classic, like, here is a joke. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very funny. Did you say death threat? Mabel's like, yeah, he threatened to kill us. So they're relaying what has happened, telling Charles that he's grave robbing, he's taken the jewelry, and if we say anything, then we could be killed. So Jan and Charles have spent the morning going through Tim Kono's phone. And Jan says that it sends the investigation into a whole different direction. Because that's Brazos' catchphrase, yeah. So there are notes and photos. There's a lot of evidence, backup for Teddy's jewel thievery. And so he was really, really, really keeping good records.
Yeah.
And yeah. So now they also know that Theo saw what Tim saw. And Tim saw what Theo did, I guess I should say. Saw the exchange between Zoe and Theo on the roof when she fell off the roof. And so they have all that information to back them up. And so they're saying, okay, so, the Demuses killed Tim. And Jan says, that's not in this phone. I don't see the evidence for that in this phone.
And then they have a little conference after that, right?
Right, because Mabel and Oliver are like, Jan, shut up. You're not part of this.
And Martin Short delivers a couple excellent lines in this little conference. He says, how do I explain? Jan is reverse helpful. Which, great. She's like a truffle pig, but instead of finding truffles, they're just bad ideas.
Yeah.
And it's such a very well done. Very well executed.
It's very good. So they say, Mabel says we need backup from the person who gave us Tim Kono's phone. So they arrange a meet.
Tim Kono's phone.
Tim Kono's phone, which is a good vocal exercise if you're working on your O sound. It's got what they call in poetry assonance, which is always what I thought was funny. It's the same vowel sound. Anyway. So they meet the detective who gave Mabel the phone by the waterfront, very, very sneaky like.
Yeah.
And Charles is trying to Brazos it up.
Yeah.
And
he's like, let me take care of this.
Yeah. And she's like, I don't understand what you said other than Tim Kono was murdered. So they're saying it was the Demas's, and, she's playing coy about the phone. And she says, no. Whoever did that, there's still some lingering questions about Tim's death. But there are a lot of obstacles in the way. And if you released a podcast with all this evidence, then that would really be helpful. So they say, listen, we're just uncomfortable. And she says, okay, it's because you don't want to be sitting ducks. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. But what you need to do is you need to release all of this stuff in the podcast. And then we'll have some place to go.
It's the why, the who, why, where, and why
how.
Now. How and why.
The how, the why, and the why now.
And this exchange that we just had is exactly what they have in the episode after she gives us them this advice.
Yeah, exactly. But Charles says, the what and the what? And she says, there's no what. Why would you say that? There is no what. It's the who, the how, the why, and the why now. Make the case.
Mm-hmm.
And make it tight. So.
Yeah, because she can't do nothing because she's waiting for the toxicology report, and even that's pushing it.
Exactly. So they go back to the Arconia, and they need to figure out how to get this podcast out, need to figure out what they're going to say. But before that, they run into their fans on the outside. On the outside, meaning outside the building. And Oliver, I believe it is, has the idea to invite them into the building and to have them help them out. Because who else knows the case as well as they do? But they're fans.
Two things. One, isn't there a scene where they're talking some more in between this, like in the Arconia? Because they get fed up with Jan again, and Oscar's there now, too, right?
Oh, yes. Jan and Oscar are also there. Correct.
Yeah. And then also, Oliver says an extremely funny line, which is, these people, they're obsessed. They've listened to the episodes over and over and over again. I'm like, haven't you only released like 3 episodes?
Well, I mean, like 7
that we know of.
7
as the audience.
Each is, that's fair.
So Oliver invites all of the fans up, and first Charles is skeptical, and then Oliver makes the case that before we were on the case, would you want us on the case? And both Mabel and Charles are like, you got me there.
Yeah.
And Mabel's still like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do. But Oscar's
Right.
there, and he has spoken with the cutter that Tim was trying to get in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim received the ring, the Ditmus's ring, the day before he died.
Yeah.
And Mabel says, no. It wasn't in all the jewelry, and we found all of it. And basically Oscar shrugs his shoulders like, listen, that's what he told me. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
So then I think they presume that the Demuses, like, took it after they killed Tim Kona.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Jan has brought snacks.
Yes.
So
Homemade
that is how
pizza
she
rolls.
has, yeah, she has, like, brought her, and I want to know how she made them. I assume this is the same day. I guess there's enough time to make them.
Yeah, I think so. I think I know how. Like, the same way you would make, like, a cinnamon roll, only with a savory cinnamon roll.
Yeah, but like, exactly, but they need to rise a little bit, so that's time consuming.
Takes 2-3 hours at most to make a cinnamon roll. If you get them prepackaged, it takes 20 minutes.
Well, if you get them prepackaged, sure. But
Yeah.
I guess Jan could be doing prepackaged and not making her own dough.
I mean, she does say homemade, so
There you go.
yeah.
Takes a fair few hours.
There you go. I mean, now this whole thing isn't believable, Melissa. You've ruined the show for me. The
I know.
timeline doesn't
it
add
all
up.
falls apart.
This is
just-
this is where I'm gonna start making a YouTube account, just picking apart. But apparently they're not very good.
No.
And that's one of the reasons Oliver goes out and grabs the fans, because he's like, I need something to dip this in. He's obsessed with dips. He's obsessed. But
Yeah.
Jan is also in this like very sort of Diane Keaton blouse combo,
She is.
which I really like.
Yeah, it's real cute. And they're all like lovey and cuddly, and it's a little like it's totally understandable and a little annoying.
Because Charles keeps bringing up that they had sex.
Yeah.
He keeps doing it.
They keep. Yeah. Have you been around a new couple recently?
I can't say recently, but yeah, I've been enough. But I know. Oh, I'm aware.
And if you're not in a new couple and or have taken like some sort of drug, it's really noticeable, and you try not to begrudge them because, good for them, but oof. It's like, just tone it down like a few notches, please.
Yeah. They're like all over each other in this episode. And yeah, in general, like, that's always, it's like, it's also so interesting that Mabel and Oliver have such a strong reaction to Jan, like, because again, like, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, they didn't know each other at all. So who is another person coming into this friend group? It's so weird. I think it's really funny and really cute that they want Charles to themselves. But, like, Oliver doesn't really even like Charles. Does that make sense? Like, if you think about it.
Yeah. No, but like,
It's
they've got
really
this bond
weird.
because they're working on this thing together. And so when someone invades this thing that they're working on together, it's really unsettling. And because she's also trying to say something completely different from what they believe.
That is true. She is being very contradictory because she wants them to look at the cat guy again.
Yeah.
And Charles
they're
is like, oh, maybe. I mean, I have his cat's legs still somewhere, which is a wild thing to think about.
Truly. The fact that this show made that funny to me is truly masterful.
Yes.
So the fans have come upstairs. The woman says to Mabel, "You're so pretty." It's like,
She's like,
yeah,
thanks.
correct. You're correct. They're even taking a picture with Oscar because they're like, it's tie-dye guy.
Someone says to Jan she looks really cute or something like that. And And Amy Ryan, is that her name?
Yeah.
So the older gentleman says, "Is this your new girlfriend?" And Charles goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, my latest girlfriend was a lot younger than me too." And the
Oh,
way Amy Ryan turns to him and like smiles is so charming. She's so good in this episode.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So Oliver is talking about this wild metaphor about dogs on a sled, and it makes
Oh yeah.
practically
But
no sense.
can I tell you? Because they don't want these fans, and he's like, you know what? They're like wild dogs, and you gotta just strap them to a sled and go. But he
Yeah.
does a classic Martin Short ism, which is he does this little laugh after he says something insane, which I
Yeah.
was like, there he is.
Yeah.
There's the Martin I know. There's
Yeah.
Jiminy Glick.
It's so funny. So they decide to do like a reenactment,
Of course.
and and they cast all of the different fans in the reenactment of, Tim taking out, whose garbage was it? Was it Tim's garbage or was it Teddy's garbage? Did Teddy write the notes? They're going through all of this stuff.
Because one of the reasons Oliver is just like, oh, right, we should bring these fans on is like, oh, who do you think it is? And he goes, oh, well, it's more than one person, right? And Oliver goes, well, what makes you say that?
Right.
And they're like, time of day, the fact that, someone had to pull the fire alarm.
Yeah.
And so they're already actually contributing as well to the case.
Right. So Oliver says this wild thing. As I said to Paula Abdul in our production of Hedda Gabler.
Yeah. And you just hear Charles go, oi.
Yeah.
It's so good. And when he assigns Jabuki to act out Tim Konos, he goes, oh, dead. I mean, actually, literally dead, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
very fun, very solid.
Yes, it's very funny. So they go through this whole reenactment, and it's very, very wild and funny. And
someone ends up punching someone in the gut and actually doing it, and Oliver goes, we're marking it.
yeah, yeah,
Which is a very inside baseball sort of joke, but it's fun.
it is. It really is. And they have like a whole stage set up. And it's like a dream sequence. It is set up like a dream sequence. Like the lighting is all different, but it's Oliver's apartment. So like, it's totally believable that he has these stage lights sitting in there, and
a
little
it's
stage
kind of a
in his
callback.
apartment.
Absolutely, it's kind of a callback to like when he was casting the part of the murderer. It's that same process that he's using now.
Yes,
but
exactly.
I absolutely agree that it is totally believable that he would just have this lying around. That's very funny. That had never occurred to me, but that idea is very funny.
Right, because like we are watching this happen in the apartment still.
Yeah.
It's not like a completely different set like in a theater or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah. The older man is playing Teddy and, taking out the gun and shooting Tim, and he's very dramatic and, falls off the stage. And then they're talking about Theo types the suicide message, and they say, that's how it all went down. What do we think? It's like, I don't know. Maybe not. So that's the how. And we have to get the recording equipment. And Jen is saying, guys, I think it feels too easy. We should really take another look at Howard, the cat guy. And we've got to do it now. We have to release this episode. We got to record it. And it's 5:30 in the morning. So we gotta get to it. And so even Charles is like, Jan, we worked on this as a team. And she says, and I'm not on the team. And Charles says, I wouldn't put it like that. And Oliver says, oh, I would. Also, your pizza rolls are chewy.
And then Charles snaps back, well, you had 6 of them, and it shows.
Yeah.
which
So
is
she storms
solid.
out.
Understandably so.
Charles says, I think she's mad at me. And Oscar says, she's definitely mad at you.
Yeah.
Charles is a little unsure. He's like, are we sure about this? I want to be sure.
Yeah.
So then we see Jan go up to her apartment, and there's a note on the door. And it says, I'm watching you. And she looks behind her. It's very ominous. But she unlocks the door and goes into her apartment.
Sorry, I was just thinking about that note, and then I was thinking about the Sting song, and I was like, I swear to God, if this thing ends up being Sting, actually, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'll see. Got
Yeah.
a couple
Because you haven't
episodes
watched.
left.
You still haven't watched the last 2 episodes, huh?
No, I haven't, because I've been sick.
Yeah.
And I can't pay attention when I'm sick. So it cuts back to Charles recording the end of the podcast back in Charles's apartment.
Yep.
And all the fans applaud, and one of them says, it feels like I just watched Prince record Purple Rain. Which is like a wild thing to say.
It is. And it's very funny.
Yeah.
And so they say, spread the word. Make sure your friends hear this. And Charles says, and find some other interests. So they're very delighted. Yeah.
And they all scoot, and the older man says to Oliver, I swear I have a job. He goes, I don't believe you. It's like there's a lot of like patter as they're leaving, which is nice.
Yeah. So they give the detective a sneak preview.
Yes, in advance.
And then you see her listening, and then you see Teddy check his phone. And he's gotten a notification.
And he shows Theo, and it says, Dipmuses take a dip. Right? Yep. That's the name of the episode.
The Demuses, yeah.
Demuses, yeah. It's interesting as well because it's the Apple Podcast logo, but it just says podcasts on it. It does not say Apple Podcasts. And I was like, huh. Another interesting thing, which I don't know if you know about this, is Apple will allow you to use iPhones in your film or television product, but only if the good guys use them. So next time you're watching, like, for example, Knives Out, certain characters in that film use Android devices, and it's because they're bad guys.
I think I have heard this. Maybe you've said it to me before, and I think it's amazing. Like, what a flex. What a flex from Apple.
I know, which is surprising why Teddy has one, but I was like, oh, I suppose in the beginning you're meant to think he's a good guy. So of course he has an iPhone.
Yeah.
As we all know, as the best people do. Tyler is going to get so mad.
Tyler, we love you even though you have an Android.
Yeah. In spite of that fact.
Yes. So you're listening to the podcast, the voiceover,
yes.
as like everyone is listening to this, and you know the theory is coming out. He confronted Teddy on the doorstep. He finally got the evidence of what he saw the night Zoe died, and then you see the detective coming to arrest the Demuses.
Yes.
And you see Oliver's son with the beautiful bulldog listening to the podcast, which should be noted because the dog is amazing. And then, of course, the fans the dog is the best. And then you see the fans camped out for some reason in front of the building, also still listening to the podcast that they just heard recorded.
Yeah.
And then the kid says, something's bothering me. Why would the Demuses sponsor podcast they knew might out them.
Now, when I said the dog is fine, I meant healthy.
Okay.
Not like the
Correct.
dog is like less than good or whatever you said. I was like,
Okay.
the dog is A-okay.
Thank you for that
Because this
clarification.
is, I think, the first time we've seen her.
Yes. And
Since.
she is being pet and scratched and looks like a happy dog.
Yeah.
So they're celebrating in Charles's apartment. Oliver, Mabel, and Oscar and Charles. And then Charles texts Jan and said, we did it. We got the Demuses. I'm sorry about last night. Please come celebrate with us. And she's not answering.
Yeah.
So.
And then Mabel and Oscar have a conversation, and Mabel has found a video of Tim Kono talking about wanting to take down the Demuses because of what happened with Oscar, and he's like, I can't make it right, but I am sorry for my silence. And so that's very good for Oscar.
Yeah, it's the admission and the regret really seems to close that. I think it's implied that Oscar can now forgive Tim and
like,
heal
move
that
forward.
Yeah, which is really lovely. He actually looks choked up when he's listening to it. So.
And then Oliver gets a call from...
and just real quick, Mabel is wearing amazing pants. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The detective gets on the phone with Oliver, and she says, I'm really impressed. You absolutely nailed them. There's a world of trouble for the grave robbing and the Cassidy death and all of this. So, but then she sees the toxicology report comes back.
Yep.
And
Tim Kono was poisoned.
Yep.
He was dead before he was even shot. And then
That's right.
also, there's security camera photos of the Demuses outside the apartment, time-stamped, during the fire alarm. And she says, blankety blank. And Oliver says, oh, is that a good blankety blank? And she goes, no, and hangs up on him.
Yeah. So they weren't even in the building when Tim died.
Yeah. And then Oliver turns around and says a very funny line. And he goes, bad news. There's still a murderer in the building.
Yeah.
Which I like the way that's phrased, because it does also... I think we kind of forget about the threat of there being a murderer in the building.
True. But Charles says, so my girlfriend was right. No one ever listens to my girlfriend or me.
Which is true.
Yeah, it's true. And he runs out, he gets some flowers, and he goes to see Jan. And Oliver, chugs the champagne that they'd been drinking. So Charles goes into her apartment, which is open. She's not answering, though. And he sees Jan on the floor. The groceries are all around her, and she is unconscious and bleeding. And that's the end of the episode.
Yep.
So
there's a great line that I forgot to mention when she brings out the pizza rolls.
Yeah.
Charles turns to Jan and says, these would pair great with gut milk, which is very funny.
It is. They love gut milk. It's so funny.
They love gut milk. You love a protein alcoholic beverage.
It's so weird. But also definitely a thing that would exist. So, okay. I just for a second want to talk about the fact that even if the Demuses didn't kill Tim Kono, which they clearly didn't, they also did a whole lot of crimes.
Oh, yeah. They're going to get put away for all the jewelry thieving. They'll just have to reissue arrests. Right.
So they're not under arrest for Tim Kono because anymore at least. or they're
Yeah.
not on the hook for that. But like, if they're in trouble for for Zoe Cassidy, and obviously all the grave robbing. So like, it's
Yeah.
still good that they were outed for that, but like, they didn't kill Tim.
No.
It just always it struck me because it's like, well, it is a problem because then we still don't know who killed Tim Kono, but at the same time it's like, it is still good that we outed the Demuses. So anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I had that exact same thought.
Yeah.
I was like, they were still criminals.
Yeah. So what do you think of this episode?
I liked it. I thought it was really funny, specifically the first time I watched it. I got a kick out of it. They gave a lot of really good moments to Martin Short in this one, which
They did.
Which I was happy with, because I don't know, it felt a little. I'm hoping, well, obviously with the next one, with what I have has been spoiled for me by the preview playing after this episode ending. It's a more Charles-centric episode, and it has to be because they're dealing with Jan. So it's nice that Oliver gets a little nugget. And then not the previous one, but the one before was very Mabel-centric. So they're really giving enough time for everybody, which is great.
Absolutely.
Even though, obviously, Mabel and Charles have things to do in this episode. Like, Mabel's very take charge in this episode. And obviously, Charles and Jan are that's a whole event. But I just realized they have almost the exact same dynamic as Han, Luke, and Leia.
Oh yeah, I guess they do.
Yeah, Charles is Luke, and Oliver is Han.
It hadn't occurred to me.
Leia. Yeah. It just struck me now. I was like, huh. But yeah, overall, it was a very funny episode. Great to see Jabuki. The fans are really funny. All of them. They also, I really do appreciate this. They gave all of them moments, all the actors, even though they're like doing these smaller parts. All of them get very solid jokes. Oh, because I'm sorry. I can't remember what the line is. I'm so upset because it made me die laughing the first time, because when the old man is, I hate calling him an old man, he's not that old, the older fella, he's talking to Martin Short, and he goes like my daughter won't call me anymore, is how he ends in like a paragraph or something like that. It's so funny. It had me howling. And so
it's very funny.
Very generous to all of these day players, which I love. You love to see it.
Absolutely.
And the twist is great at the end, because obviously I'm like, well, there are more episodes. It can't be this. You know, this is like the equivalent of, 45 minutes into a Poirot episode. You know that they think they've got the person, but they haven't. Like, it's just spread out.
Yeah.
And then I had the same problem as the kid. I was like, why on earth would Teddy Demas sponsor the podcast?
Yep.
That makes no sense. Even if you are like trying to double play them or something. I was like, nah, this ain't it, fam.
Yeah, it's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I'm
also
gonna say,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
like 3.5. Like a good episode, but I don't think I would be like, this one, wow. I'd be like, this is a really solid episode with some good bits and good character development, but like nothing. I mean, it's hard to, again, rate each individual episode because it's just a nugget of the mystery.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's hard.
Right.
It's hard to quantify this.
I do enjoy the twist. I enjoy that there's a twisty turny. It's a really fun episode. Again, I think we're pretty much on the same page for this one. I think we're in agreement. It is not the best episode, of the whole series, but it's extremely strong. Like it's very good, but just grading on a curve, I would also give it a 3.5.
Yeah. Because again, it's also hard because with a show that is this good, it's hard.
Right, because, I mean, we'll rate the series overall, probably, but, like, I think I'd rate the series as a whole. I know I would rate the series as a whole higher than, 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, you could give all the episodes 4 to 4.5 or even 5 across the board, and, like, it's good. It's a good show. It's a real good show.
It's a good show. And even when it's fine, it's still better than a lot of stuff that's out there.
Truly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
and
this
it's so
episode
nice.
was fine, but it was very good.
Yeah. And it's so nice that they're like 30 minutes long.
Oh, it is. It's such a joy to not have to sit there for 55 minutes and go,
We've got 2 left. 2
and
episodes
we shall
left.
see if it was Sting or not.
We shall see.
Shall she. And with that, I'll call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Clubs to a close. Tristan Miller, the stuffy sleuth.
Signing off.
Signing off? What is
I don't
this,
know.
AOL?
Well, you didn't. You changed
I know,
it.
I did it weird. It's fine.
Weird.
You can do
you
it
did
weird
a weird
too.
thing.
It's fine.
I do a weird thing too. All right.
Yeah, we both do a weird thing. We're two weirdos.
Good night.
Good night.